How's it going, crypto community? This is Jade, the XRP Martian, back with another Martian report. And in this one, we're going to be covering a topic, a question posed to me by a community member, XRPKJ Jersey Shore. So shout out to Jersey Shore. And his question, he had a few questions, but the big question that I want to answer, which is basically his encompassing question, is how will the success of Ripple make XRP investors money? How is it that I, as somebody who holds a massive amount of XRP, expects to make any kind of return on XRP based upon Ripple's success? And to explain that, I'm going to first start off by explaining how value has operated prior to the advent of, or the introduction of cryptocurrencies. And unfortunately, can't find a strong gold chart over here on TradingView because they don't have one. So we're just going to go with this. And this shows from 2004 to present the value of gold shares. Now this isn't true gold value, but has these gold shares do move a near one correlation. Essentially, they move the same way that the price of gold moves, right? So the idea is, simply put, that ever since 2004, from 2004 really to 2012, the value of gold has been skyrocketing compared to the dollar, right? And from 2012 until present, we've been in a consolidation, but we're still holding bullish in the long term, right? It's very likely that what we're witnessing right now is about to just continue to rise, especially since in the last 2 months we've set a new higher high. So there's even technical evidence that it's going to probably go back up higher. But the reason that this is happening is not because gold is just it's not because gold is appreciating in value. It's more so because the dollar is losing value. And for those who don't understand why the dollar would be losing value when you're being told on the news that the dollar is strong, yes, the dollar is strong, but only versus other traditional currencies such as the British pound, the Russian ruble, whatever currency you want to, the euro, right? Yes, the dollar is strong compared to these, but it is not strong compared to the traditional store of value, which is gold, which has always operated as a safe haven for the wealthy to run to every time they're ready to pop the bubble, every time the bubble is getting ready to pop, right? If we want to say it in a non-conspiratorial way. But let's be real. Just like there are whales in cryptocurrencies, there are whales in the traditional stock market. And just like a whale is in the crypto market is going to have a heavy influence on the direction of the market, regardless of where a pattern is playing out, the same can be said of these whales on the stock market. Now, because they understand that they have to keep the market healthy, they're not incentivized to really bring the whole house of cards down too often. However, sometimes, such as the state we see the stock market, the S&P in now, we'll go over to the S&P. Now, sometimes you just have to cool off because sometimes you've run up so high that there's just no value in this range anymore to be had. And the reason for that, let's be real, what you're looking at in the price of the S&P is inflation, plain and simple. You're looking at the dollar hyperinflating against the value of assets, of commodities. And so what is occurring really? When Jersey Shore asks, how is this going to make us wealthy? The idea is it's going to make you wealthy because you're going to be one of the few people whose value is not about to be robbed from them with the hyperinflation, the visible hyperinflation that is soon to come to the US dollar. And when this occurs, that value will go somewhere. And that somewhere that value is going to go is going to be the same place that it always flees. And that's to stores of value. Stores of value are things such as precious metals, but not always. They can be other stronger currencies. Currencies that have, for example, a gold back, which ensure, now a gold backing, for those who don't understand the relevance of a gold backing simply ensures your supply of currency is fixed. It's fixed to the supply of gold. So therefore, you cannot create more. You are fiscally prevented by your system that you choose to operate in to not create more dollars or more money of that gold-backed currency than you can, back with gold. Now, back in the, I don't remember how long ago they started doing this, but I think it was in the 1910s, 1920s. I think it's the early 1900s. It might have been 1800s. I can't remember exactly right off the top of my head. But we moved from being 100% gold backed to being just backed by a portion of gold. And so at many points in history, most currencies that are backed by gold are not backed at a 1-to-1 ratio. Instead, they're backed at about a 20 to 40% ratio, and that's considered a healthy, stable backing. So that for every 1 British pound you have, 20 cents to 40 cents, every dollar you have, 20 cents to 40 cents of each of those is going to be backed by gold, and therefore you have a gold backing, right? Now, that's not necessary for a cryptocurrency, because we, with XRP, as XRP investors, as Bitcoin investors, as anybody who's investing in a digital asset that has a fixed total supply, right? There's only so much that can ever be in circulation in total. With such currencies, we are secured in our ability to know that our value cannot be depreciated, that no one can print more XRP or more Bitcoin out of thin air. You can only get more Bitcoin by mining it, and there is a maximum supply, right? Once 21 million Bitcoin have been mined, no Bitcoin will ever be mined again. Same with XRP. It's already all pre-mined. So there's 100 billion XRP, and in fact, XRP is burned every time a transaction is made. So there will never be 100 billion XRP again, and someday there's not even going to be 90 billion XRP, right? Now, that's probably going to be like something that you could expect to see if you're somebody my age, that maybe by the time you're on your deathbed, you're going to be like, holy crap, it ticked down to 89, right? So the point being, though, is that unlike the dollar, that they just keep printing more billions and billions of dollars every single year, XRP has a fixed supply. And so it's just a matter of supply and demand as for why you are going to experience a great increase in your value as somebody who is investing in the digital assets, especially once quantitative easing truly kicks into effect to try and stave off this coming financial apocalypse, right? So, pardon me. So, why are you going to become wealthy as an XRP investor? For the same reason that anybody, again, is going to become wealthy holding Bitcoin or any other currency as the traditional currency system hyperinflates. It is not that you're going to be making, it's not that the idea is that the value of these other currencies is going to be moved into XRP. And as their value is moved into XRP, their value is going to depreciate. That means their value is going to go down, XRP's value is going to go up, and nobody's going to be able to tell which is which. But the reality is the reason XRP is going up is because the other currencies are going down, not the reverse. Furthermore, as XRP gains in value, it is going to gain the ability to become it will have enough liquidity within its total market value, within the value. There will be enough XRP essentially with enough value to facilitate the movement of global funds. And so, to answer part of Jersey Shore's question now as to why Ripple and what Ripple's doing is going to increase the value. And the reason that what they're doing is going to increase the value of Ripple, or of XRP rather, and not just Ripple shareholders, is because, and really I don't think Ripple shareholders are going to benefit even half as much as people in XRP. Let's be clear about that before I even go into this. But the reason why Ripple's work is going to help so many XRP investors value the value of their coin is because they're creating utility for this currency that we all hold and believe in, right? And what is utility? Utility is the demand a currency has. And so now we have the other side of the equation, right? I just spent this first half of the video talking about supply and supply of different currencies and the supply of our currency that we invest in as digital asset investors. And so we understand that the dollar is depreciating in value because its supply is being increased at an exponential rate, whereas our supply is fixed. And so we're going flat, and the supply of the dollar is going like this, and thus we see the price of XRP do the same thing the dollar does in comparison. So when you add in the utilities, the demand side, what Ripple is doing, Ripple now is not only do we have this currency that has a fixed supply and therefore it's going to gain value against traditional currencies, but also there's this awesome company called Ripple Labs, and they're out there developing a use case. They're out there creating demand for this token and demand for it to fill the same role that the US dollar once did, or currently does, rather. Soon to be once did, but the role that the US dollar had in that it facilitated cross-border transactions. It facilitated intermittent banking by and large, or it helped reduce the cost associated with correspondent banking, not intermittent banking, correspondent banking. And so the idea is that as the value of the dollar depreciates and XRP finds more use cases, your supply is going to have a positive impact on the price, and the utility in addition is going to have a positive impact on the price. And these two forces are going to create a positive feedback loop that feeds into each other. And this gets into, I think it's the Triffin's dilemma, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure I'm not getting my... Yeah, I think that's it's Triffin's dilemma. Right? The demand. Triffin's dilemma is a paradox in the conflict of economic interests that arise between short-term domestic and long-term international objectives for countries whose currency serves as a global reserve currency, right? So the idea is that a global reserves currency's ultimate goal is to appreciate in value in the long term. However, this is detrimental to a nation because having a strong currency versus other countries' currencies makes it really hard for you to produce things at value for the world, right? So the idea is that the part of the reason why America really struggled for a long time to hold on to any number of jobs in America, any amount of production in America, is because America is American employees are so expensive, and the reason we're more expensive than other countries, isn't because, of anything other than the fact that we have this highly valuable asset, the US dollar. This is our home currency. But it's so valuable because all countries use this to facilitate trade between themselves for so many different things. It's not just used here, it's used all around the world because it is this global reserve. And so what this does, this is this dilemma that you actually want your nation's currency to be relatively low in value. You want it to have a low trade rate against other currencies so that you can remain competitive in offering a good deal on whatever it is that you produced to somebody else. All right. So the idea is that once these systems all connect into this new global reserve, this new bridge currency, that bridge currency, whatever that is, we all believe here in the XRP community that it's XRP, hands down. Personally, I've seen all I need to see to be convinced that this is going to be that one. People may say this is hype or whatever you want to say, but power's handed to those nearest. You don't take over the old system without working with the old system, because the old system does not want to collapse, and for good reason. Because if the system collapses, 90% of humanity dies. Okay, let's just be real clear about that. If we don't do this right, at least 90%, 9 out of 10 people will die. So add up everybody that you know, and then decide which one you're going to be comfortable with dying if this system falls apart. Okay? That's how serious this is. This is why this isn't going to just be given to Bitcoin or to some asset that when they transfer over, they find a flaw in it. No, they've already found flaws in Bitcoin. And this kind of goes to a point made by somebody else in our community, Digital Nomad Investor. Digital Nomad Investor has talks at extent in his live streams. Part of the reason why I really like him and have promoted him out a few times. You should also check out Digital Asset Investor or Digital Nomad Investor if you have not already. Man is brilliant and very very in tune with how government bodies operate amongst each other and how geopolitics works. But the point that we're getting at here is that what is occurring is a wealth transfer. Many of you have probably heard of this. The great wealth transfer. There's people in our community and outside that like to use that buzzword all the time, and this truly is what's going on. We are witnessing the value of the world being transitioned from traditional fiats to these new digital assets, and because XRP is positioning itself to take over the role of what the US dollar is in the modern financial system, and the US dollar has, for the last 60 years, been essentially the most powerful currency in the world, it's easy to extrapolate then that once XRP truly takes over for the dollar, it will be the most valuable currency in the world. Now, right now, XRP is not even the third most valuable cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrencies are valued at pennies, really fractions of pennies, against the dollar, in regards to the actual value of the dollar, right? Now, sometimes people, what a lot of people don't keep in mind is how many dollars there are, right? There are, I think it's right now it's around 24 trillion dollars. I've seen figures between 18 and 24, so that's why I'm kind of stumbling around. But we're gonna go with $20 trillion US dollars exist in the world. Now, if we were to have a fair value against XRP purely about supply, then the value of XRP right now should actually be somewhere in the $10 range, actually, because you have 20 trillion divided by 100 billion. And so you get a actually that's $200. Sorry. Wow, that's a lot more money. Yeah. But yeah, essentially, if you were going to do a one-to-one value between XRP and the US dollar, the XRP would be worth $200 right now. Wow, we are so undervalued. I'm going to share that. That's genuine too. That was genuine reaction. That was me being astounded at realizing just how undervalued XRP actually is right now. Holy crap. Anyways, and that's just the supply side. That's just supply side value, right? Now, when you put in demand on top of this, now you understand why. Now I really understand, and you hopefully understand, why 589 is really not that extravagant of a number, right? Because there's $20 trillion floating around right now, and there's only going to be more. As we said at the beginning, the U.S. government's just printing billions of dollars nonstop, and they're about to go into a recession period where that's when we really start cranking up how much money we print, because they're going to have to try to print enough money to bail out the economy. Now, how are they going to do that without inflating the dollar into infinity? They're going to do a bail-in. And by a bail-in, that means that they're going to print all that money, much like Tether does, and they're going to inflate a currency. They're going to hyperinflate their currencies against whatever that new global reserve is. And in inflating the value of that global reserve, they're going to deflate their currencies, and meaning that they will then be able to, they're going to be buying into this currency that's going to be appreciating in value as they buy in, meaning that what they are printing is gaining value, even though they are printing themselves, the value of their currency into nothingness, right? And so what is happening is that they are preserving their value that they're printing, as opposed to deflating previously created value. And so when they do this, what's going to happen is that the U.S. deficit is actually going to be reduced in a real world number. And so that's why this is actually so attractive to these countries, because it, as has been pointed out, it solves the Triffin's dilemma. Digital assets solve the Triffin's dilemma because they are decentralized supranational currencies that can be used as without any one nation having special interests in that. Therefore, there's no therefore a nation never needs to worry about its currency becoming too valuable, because it's the global reserve, to actually make it possible for that country to participate in this global economy in a way that enables it to be competitive selling products too, right? So, super interesting question from XRP KJ over there at Jersey Shore. Thank you very much for the question. Managed to get me a 23-minute conversation out of me, and I still don't feel like this was really adequate, but maybe I'll do like a series on this. So this will just be part 1 of why XRP is going to go up in value dramatically, and why what Ripple is doing is going to impact the price as well. Again, most of this video was explaining the supply side, but what Ripple is doing is focusing on that demand to help spread the supply of XRP amongst ecosystem participants who will have the potential to do exactly what I just laid down for you. Ripple is putting XRP in the hands of central banks, and for those who don't know, when you print money, it's not the U.S. government that's printing it; it's the central banks that are printing money. Keep that in mind. XRP is being put in the hands of central banks. Ripple is telling central banks, has been telling them for quite some time now, that they need to go make their own central bank digital currencies, and that these central bank digital currencies need to plug into a supranational asset, which will facilitate cross-border remittance services, right? And we all know that they're talking about XRP when they talk about that asset. And again, as I explained with the bailout or the bail-in process, that means that all of these nations who are creating their central bank digital currency intend to plug this currency into this supranational currency, into XRP, and they're going to they're going to buy banks. These people who create currency are going to buy XRP with the currency they're creating. Thus the bail-in. And this will, in theory, assuming this all works out, it should actually create a golden age of sorts, for who knows how many years, 10, 20, 100, who knows, where the market's just where everybody in the marketplace is going to experience prosperity to a very high degree, a degree that we haven't seen perhaps since, the roaring 20s, which is ironic because we're going into the 20s of this era, or of this century. So history perhaps does not always repeat itself, but interesting that it seems to be rhyming in this situation, right? So we will see. Will it end like the roaring 20s in a crash, or will it just continue into the 30s this time around? Irregardless of which happens, I believe that the picture that I have constructed in my mind, the research that I have, and again, I'm not a financial expert, I'm just somebody who's really obsessed with the world going to hell, and cryptocurrencies has given me a glimmer of hope in a dark world, because I've been convinced that we were all going to be spiraling down in the nuclear war because there was no other way out. But now I see this digital asset thing as a promise for our future. If society actually does what it needs to and moves forward with this, there's the promise that we will not have to worry about global conflicts between superpowers, because this level playing field will ensure that there's no hurt feelings on either side of the aisle, akin to what is traditional, right? There's a reason why world wars are typically waged by world powers. It's because they are the ones who are directly implicated in these trade tensions due to their currency being paramount, being central to the global economy at that time, at those points in time. So with all that said, we're already up to almost 30 minutes, so I want to end this video here. Like I said, if there's still an outcry that I didn't answer a few questions, I'll collect some more questions and try and do a part 2 on top of this. So thank you all for tuning in. As always, if you're new to my channel and this is the first video, please hit that subscribe and ring that bell. And also on your way out, since you made it all the way to the end of this, please hit that like. It helps me a lot with my YouTube algorithms, and I appreciate it all. As always, I can't wait to see all of you in my next video on Mars.